recently put solar panels on the University of Tulsa. We've got about 300 kW solar on the roof of the tennis center there. And then we've also put solar panels on the top of our headquarters here in downtown Tulsa. So there's definitely speed bumps in this journey as we try to figure out exactly what customers want and what the utility of the future looks like. Not all stakeholders want the same thing. Everybody has different thoughts on what they can afford. Historically, rates are driven and determined, based on the cost allocation. And it's supposed to be not subsidizing any particular class. And all rates have to be fair. Well, that doesn't always work for everybody, and it becomes a challenge. We've got regulatory paradigms across the U.S. that are very different. Just in our footprint of AEP, we've got Texas, where we're basically a wires company in Texas. We cannot talk with the customers. All the customers have been sold off to the retail entities. Oklahoma is still fully integrated utility, and then you go back up into Ohio, and you've got decoupling that exists. Just in our 11 states, we've got a lot of different paradigms and regulatory challenges. Everybody wants the grid to be resilient, and we talk about some of this Hurricane Sandy and some of those kind of things. Everybody wants to see that grid is structurally sound and be able to handle those things, but nobody wants to pay for it. And then that becomes quite a challenge. And then you transform the generation fleet, again, balancing the diversity of the generation and what our stakeholders and shareholders will assume in terms of risk. And then finally, the smart meters, our smart energy technologies. There's a number of things out there, as they've mentioned, Tendril, O-Power. We're using a system that's called C3 Energy, which is a similar kind of system. What's out there that's gimmicks versus what's really good apps. And there's a number of vendors out there, and we try to sell the utilities wherever they can. But proving out that technology is something that is a risk for utilities, but at the same time, it's good information for customers. So this slide's pretty busy, but it shows some of the different things that we've got in terms of consumer programs. As you can see, on the right there is our outage alerts. So again, it comes back to customers who want information and they want it now. So we've created mobile alerts to let people know when they might have an outage in their area. We try to use that to also inform when we expect the outage to be remedied and that kind of thing. The utility is always considered to be the trusted advisor for customers, and that's well sent with the Energy Star Award. And when you talk about Jim was talking about the Energy Star labels, and that's again something that customers trust, that when they buy Energy Star, they're buying a good quality energy saving type product. The house there in the middle, that just shows a number of different rebates that we offer through our consumer programs and the energy efficiency programs. Website on the left side of the graph is, again, it shows the customers' choices that they have and ways to save energy. The Power Pay is a program that actually is going to roll out next week or start in November. Power Pay is enabled because of the smart meter. So it kind of comes back to, the smart meters are a great thing. If you don't do anything with the technology, then it's kind of worthless. Well, we've taken and created a prepaid program, basically, so customers can now purchase their electricity in a prepaid format. That way, it does away with their initial sign-up fees and that kind of thing. And they get alerts of when their bill's low and how to remedy those things. So again, it's an offering, an option that we wouldn't have had you not had those smart meters, because that smart meter allows us to connect and disconnect almost immediately in that way, and we can also see what that actual usage is and know how much they are spending in terms of the kilowatt hours and what their actual bills looking like and how much they have prepaid and how much they've emptied that account. The Smart Hours program is again tied back to our AMI rollout. We are offering customers a digital Wi-Fi thermostats. The Wi-Fi thermostats enables them to control their usage. We found that, research has found that having a programmable thermostat can reduce your electric consumption by 6% kind of minimum, and then it goes clear up to, you've seen studies as high as 15%. So again, this is enabled because of those digital meters out there, that with smart hours, the customer is able to manage their energy consumption, and we've tied back pricing programs that go along with that. So we have the time of use type programs, we have a critical peak pricing program, and then we have a combination of the TOU, time of use, and a direct load control. Again, they are all carrot-based programs that are direct load control with residential and these thermostats. And they basically have opted in to direct load control, where you can reduce their consumption during those peak times, and they have an option of going to the thermostat if they don't want to participate and opting out of it. So it's really simple. I'm trying to make our interaction with the customers as simple as possible. Those few things listed on the bottom are one of our business offerings. We do some customized energy solutions, working with customers to find out ways to save. We do power management and power quality things with customers, as well as what we call our My Energy Advisor, My Energy Usage. So this is a platform. This is basically developed by C3 Energy, similar to the 10-going power, and this allows the customer to see the information, their data that smart meter allows. So they can actually look up their information almost in real time. They can build profiles, find ways to save energy. The more they interact with the platform, the more information that'll give back to them in terms of what their particular usage might be. And so again, the AMI, we went from a billing system that basically created one bill, one energy number a month, to now we're creating 15-minute interval data, so you're talking about 2,800 observations a month. So just a dramatic amount of information that's put back to the customer. Some other products and initiatives that we've got going, as I mentioned, we've got solar. We've done some solar applications with universities, which are definitely trying to go the green route. Geothermal, which has been around for years. We've looked at other behind-the-meter technologies. Our energy efficiency programs we've been running since 2008. We've done a volt bar optimization. If you're not familiar with volt bar, you basically got voltage coming out of a substation at a certain level, and if you think about that line that comes out of that substation, it goes many miles until it gets to finally the end of its line. Well, historically, without data and technology to be able to really see what the electric consumption and the voltage is on those lines, you basically set your voltage coming out of a substation at like 125 volts. And by the time it got to the end of the line, which may be 30 miles out, that voltage would be down to around 112, 114. Well, volt bar is an optimization, which comes back to the communication technology that allows the utility to flatten that shape, so it comes out of a substation at a much lower level and stays flat. And what that does, it creates energy savings, because voltage is tied to energy. And so we found that we can save customers about 3% just by optimizing that voltage as it comes out of the substation. Demand management platforms, again, that comes back to the My Energy Advisor, and then there's other opportunities on the larger customers to help them understand and manage their demand. That's similar to the virtual power plant. We deal with a lot of power quality issues and offer customers options for power quality. And then finally, you get the combined heat and power. This last slide, I'll just briefly go through it, but when Melanie asked, what do you see for the next 10 years, and what's the challenge, and what's the opportunity? And to me, it goes really back to data availability and communication technologies. When you look at the meters that we pulled out of the field in the last year and a half, some of those dated back to the 1950s when they were installed. So they were analog meters that basically all they did is record your end usage, and that was it. today with these AMI meters, with these digital meters that we are able to communicate with on a more real-time basis, we're just finding out all the opportunities there. Not only do we get data back to the customer so they can really see how they're using information, but we recently found earlier in the summer, we had a significant windstorm come through, knocked out power to over 100,000 customers. The first assessment of that power, when we were going to get these 100,000 customers back on, they thought it might be 4 to 5 days. So that was the message we sent out. It's probably going to be 4 to 5 days before you're going to get your power on. It turned out that with the use of this metering technology, we actually did it all in 2 days. And why that happened is because to find out about an outage previously, you basically called your utility and the utility said, oh, okay, thanks for telling us you're out of power, because we didn't know it. And that's kind of a sad state, but that's how it was before with these old analog meters. But today we know who's out. We know exactly how they're out. We're able to roll the trucks out to fix those lines, get those customers back up and running. We can ping those meters out there and say, do they have power? If they've got power, then we can release the trucks to go to another site. Many times, historically, you'd roll out there, you'd fix the lines, you thought you had it fixed, the trucks would leave, the customers are still calling in saying, hey, I still don't have power, and your trucks just left. It was a bad situation, but today, those trucks roll one time to that site and get it all fixed at the same time. So really a big advantage with the technology. So again, I think that more and more we'll see the interactive grid, and that'll be quite a game changer. As they kind of alluded to, you got smart technologies out there, you got smart appliances. I think we'll see more and more of that happening, that the grid and the technologies, whether it's your refrigerator, microwave, whatever, communicating with the grid, and will create some pretty good savings and opportunities. But I think the final slide I'll leave you with is this is commercial, this is not residential, but so the average price of electricity, I'll throw a number slide up here because I do have an economics background, and I felt bad that I didn't have enough numbers on the desk. But, so looking at commercial, the average price of electricity in the U.S. last year was a little over 10 cents a kilowatt hour. When you look at Hawaii, 26, California 15, New York 15, Washington State with a lot of hydropower, it's down there 7.4, Oklahoma 7.8, Texas 8.6. Oklahoma, Texas has a lot of wind power, a lot of light natural gas. PSO's price last year was 7.1 cents for commercial. Our residential rate is a little over 9 cents. Our average customer uses about 1,120 kilowatt hours a month. So you equate that to just over $100. It's hard to get customers to do a whole lot when their electric bill is $100.
$3 a day.
Yeah. I mean, you're looking at your cell phone, my cell phone bill runs 150 or more. My cable bill is 180. So electricity in Oklahoma is very cheap. So that, again, makes it difficult for us to do a lot of these programs because to be cost effective, you got to save significant dollars. And unfortunately, if the price is low, or fortunately, it creates a challenge. So again, in economics, everything comes back to the price. And I kind of leave you with that.
So at this point, I just wanted to, before we open it to questions, I mentioned at the beginning that I asked each of them what they thought the most important development would be in the next 10 years. I didn't know what they were going to say until I saw their presentations, and I actually think it's really interesting that the way that I interpreted it, put it together, is you've all kind of said the same thing. So Jim mentioned smart meters, and Seth talked about a way of informing people that's as easy as making a cup of coffee. And Jeff said data availability and communication technology. And to me, I think information and the flow of information between individuals and utilities, and meters is a way to do that. Sounds like that might be the development that might be the most important. With that, I have questions in case you do not, but I would like to open up the floor for questions.
Is there a microphone?
I do not.
You can use one of ours.
Yeah, you can borrow one of ours.
My name is John Jimison, and I cannot avoid making a couple of comments and then asking a question. I served as senior counsel to the Energy and Commerce Committee of the House of Representatives, both at the time that we passed the Energy Independence Security Act, and was the one who held the pen on the smart grid title, which included the demonstration and matching grant programs that were then funded the next Congress by the stimulus bill, which I also managed for the House. And when we were writing the smart grid title, needless to say, I saw a parade of electric utility lobbyists coming through saying, oh, well, this is great because smart grid is the way of the future, and we really, we want to make investments in it, but we're having a hard time convincing our regulators there's a benefit here and all that kind of thing. But a big part of the argument was frequently, we're already installing remote reading meters, and those are smart meters, right? I said, well, if the only feature they're adding is the ability to read them remotely, and they're not providing more detailed information to both sides of the meter, then I don't think I would call it that. Oh no, because we've already invested in that. So it became an issue. So when we wrote the title, I was thinking, well, a smart meter is necessary but not sufficient for smart grid. You've got to have that information sharing device from one side of the meter to the other. So I can't write them out of the bill. I can't say, no, none of this demonstration or matching grant money can go to smart meters. And I thought about, can I specify that you can't cover the remote reading capability of it with these funds, but you can deal with individual appliance information and other kinds of facets of it? No, so I couldn't do that. So what I decided to do was just tell DOE with all the emphasis I could, look, we're putting a lot of money into smart grid with this stimulus bill. I don't want it all spent on smart meters because, yes, that's necessary, but that's not what will really get us where we're going to go. But it turned out there was a lot of pressure to spend that money. We put $4.3 billion into smart grid grants and matching grants and such. We changed, I've got a lot of war stories about it, I won't bore you with it, but nonetheless, we were aware that there was a real potential to spend a lot of money simply installing smart meters without getting to the activities and attributes on both sides of the meter that would make them useful. The analogy I use is like people wanting to build a golf course, and I hire a consultant. He comes back and he says, well, I bought each of you a state-of-the-art golf bag with a GPS chip on it. I know you don't have the course, and I know you don't have any clubs, but when you do, you're going to need this golf bag to carry the clubs and play the game. Well, that's sort of, what the way we felt about the smart meter thing. The question is, one to Seth, Vermont is very unique in that they have an energy efficiency utility separate from the electric utilities in the state. And they are a very high-ranking state when it comes to energy efficiency. So I would expect the people you're doing the study with had already been exposed to a lot of energy efficiency information and opportunities and options and such. And that may have did you work with the energy efficiency utility there in the study as well as the active electric utilities?
The short answer is yes. The energy efficiency utility, for those that don't know, in Vermont is called Efficiency Vermont, and they are basically funded by a surcharge on Vermont electric ratepayers' bills, and basically their charge is to deploy energy efficiency, to deploy energy efficiency technologies and devices and things like that. We did work with them because because they have so in Vermont, Efficiency Vermont has the charge to do energy efficiency stuff. And so we did work with them basically to ensure that, that the utility was not stepping on their toes. At the time that we were putting this study together, the focus of Efficiency Vermont was exclusively on commercial buildings. And the focus of the study that I talked about was exclusively single-family residential. And so so it may well be the case that some of our study participants had heard of Efficiency Vermont, maybe had interacted with them in some way, even though their focus was really on commercial buildings. But for the most part, at the time, that was not, like, residential was not the space where Efficiency Vermont was mostly operating. I mean, that's very different now. But at the time, it was primarily focused on commercial and whatever industry is still in Vermont.
Yeah, I'd like to add a little to the implicit question in John's very helpful comments. I too was critical of our local utility, Pacific Gas and Electric, in that they weren't putting much attention in how you can use the meters in an effective way. But I think this whole thing that Seth and I were talking about is a combination of information technology and behavioral incentives for a low salience world. It was pointed out, electricity is not costing you much and you're saving all pennies. How do you change behavior in a useful way in a low salience world? That's a really nascent field, but it's growing, and there's a lot of research going on. So I think at first, PG&E is put in the meters, and the research to make them useful is going on in universities. Some of it was funded by DOE through an ARPA-E grant, is what we move forward. C3 Energies had some of my PhD students working in it. Tendril is started with some of the disaggregation algorithms that were developed through us and other people. O-Power took insights that Hunt Alcott has brought into it. So what we're having now is, over the last 10 or 15 years, a brand new field, saying in a low salience world of low salience, it doesn't matter a lot to our bottom line. How do you motivate to have something important doing when you find that the dollar incentive is too small to make a difference, but there's a lot of other behavioral interventions? That's what SENSE was all about. That's what a lot of what I was talking about. That's what I heard about a lot of programs that Jeff was talking about. It's a really powerful, interesting research field, because it's really growing up and it's a good time. There's a lot of students in the audience here. It's worth paying attention to it, but you gotta jump out of the neoclassical paradigm to be successful.
So I'll add one thing in response to what John said, which is that in the study in Vermont, we found basically no evidence that that kind of peak time demand reduction leads to energy conservation, in the sense that, you know, people did use less electricity between 1 and 6, which meant that they used more between 6 a.m. and 1 and after 6 p.m. And the net kilowatt hour reduction over the course of a typical day was not 0, but pretty close. And so I think, I mean, one of the takeaways that I took from that is that kind of energy efficiency and conservation and peak time demand reduction actually may be different problems that require different interventions.
Sure. I think he says exactly right. The demand response, those peak time rebates, are not going to create the energy savings. Really, the energy savings, what we've seen just comes through the thermostat itself, and the fact that folks have that opportunity to adjust that setting and forget it. It's one of those things where they can adjust it, leave it, and forget it.
I'm in California.
Steve, if you want a microphone,
Sure.
here.
Okay, well, my question is about the Vermont study. First of all, did I understand that there were about 400 people in each group? Is that?
No, there were different numbers of people in each group, and so there were fewer people in those groups that received the in-home device, the little dashboard, and that was a budget constraint that we basically had to live under. But there were like about 300 or so people in the groups without the dashboard, and a couple hundred.
About as many in, a small subdivision
Yeah.
or something like that. Okay, but my question is, did you get responses that had to do with, I don't want people looking at what my electricity usage is? And in California, where I'm from, there was a lot of worry about Big Brother as soon as it's possible to know whether I'm home, whether my TV is turned on, whether or not I'm running my furnace, those kinds of questions that people started saying in public participation meetings. I don't want the utility to have that kind of information, and so therefore I don't want to have a smart meter on my house.
So probably for me, the most entertaining moment of this entire process was during the second summer that this was going on. I got a call from my dad, who lives in Vermont, and he said, Seth, what are you doing? There are like editorials in the newspaper calling you like the most evil person since Darth Vader. And not only does this evil professor, Seth Blusack, want to be able to track all of your electricity usage and give it to the police and give it to the feds and all these other things I was going to do with it, right? I was an out-of-state flatlander. I think in Vermont in particular, there's been a tremendous amount of pushback, and we did have a lot of people refuse to participate on the grounds that they didn't want their information being tracked, even though the smart meter was already there and we tracked it anyway. But in Vermont, so Vermont has been particularly, I will say, permissive in allowing people to tell the utility that they don't want the meter, right? And we'll have it removed at no cost. So.
But I'd like to actually respond by asking Steve a question and give everybody else a background of this. In California, when we were putting in smart meters, there was massive protest newspapers about smart meters and lots of information, so that people were given a chance to opt out, just paying sort of the incremental cost of doing pretty small cost. But there was, you see the newspapers and the editorials, it was massive revolt. Steve, how many people opted out? Do you know what fraction?
I don't know, but it's very small.
Almost none.
Yeah.
Almost
Mostly
none.
in Marin County.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the very interesting things is how many people I hear that are saying, boy, I don't want my privacy violated. And then I look what they have on their Facebook page.
Right.
Oh my God, what do you mean your privacy? You lost all privacy a long time ago.
Yeah, let me just add on to that is, PSO is just finishing its rollout of the smart meters. And one thing we really realized very early on is that don't call it a smart meter. We call it a digital meter, because that's really what it is. It's not smart like a cell phone. It's a digital meter. So you're just replacing an analog meter that would record your electric usage with a digital one. And that digital one actually has some communication technology with it. Really, you don't know anything more past that meter. And we, Oklahoma Corporation Commission, decided that you needed an opt-out. So PSO initially had a little over 2,000 customers opt out. But that was before we would determine what the charge was going to be to opt out. So it's still yet to be seen how many folks, because they've got to, I believe, January to determine whether they're going to stay out or not.
All right, well, we've run over, but we started late, so I think we've run over by the same amount late that we started. There is a coffee break on right now, so I encourage you, if you have any more questions for our panelists, please, I'm sure they'll be happy to talk to you. I'd like, if you join me in thanking the panelists, and thank you for coming.